Hey everyone, welcome to Rock Therapy Episode 1. Today we're going to be cutting the rocks I found in Rockhounding Vegas Episode 1. And I've been wanting to cut these for a while, but I haven't really been able to for financial and time reasons. So anyway, let's head inside and get started. To start off, I'll be using a trim saw to cut the biggest rock open first. This one was quite heavy and solid feeling, and some chalcedony was visible on the outside, so we picked it up mostly to cut it open and see what's inside. I'm not really expecting anything solid or nice on the inside, but let's find out. That's actually looking really solid. Let's clean it off to see what we've got. First it goes into the cat litter to soak up the mineral oil from the outside, and then we scrub the litter residue and any remaining oil off. And here's the cleaned up result. It's pretty interesting. I never would have expected a white matrix with orangish pink lines, nor for the rock to be so incredibly solid. Next up, we have another heavy rock that's similar in appearance to the last one. This one was quite similar inside as well, white chalcedony with cracks that have been permeated by an orangish mineral. It's pretty neat that this rock exists in Vegas and it's unlike any of the numerous jaspers we find, but I don't think it's quite interesting enough to make cabs out of in this video. And now we have the final mystery rock that we picked up merely to satisfy our curiosity. This one was also showing chalcedony on the outside and felt heavy for its size. And the inside is super interesting. This one looks like a conglomerate of small chalcedony rocks that was completely filled in by mineral-rich water. This is definitely the most interesting mystery rock from Rockhounding Vegas Episode 1. And I'd imagine there are similar mystery rocks up in that lot still, waiting to be found. Next up to slice is a sizable jasper-agate. It's pretty obviously cracked on the outside, but the color variation looks really promising. Hopefully it's not all fractured inside. The colors inside are even better than I thought, with this beautiful band of yellow plume visible on the edge. Sadly though, the cracks do permeate the entire rock. But I'll still take a whack at cutting it. I ended up cutting one of the halves into 2 slabs. I'm really excited about this gorgeous looking yellow jasp-agate with red-orange plumes. This one looks incredibly solid from the outside, so hopefully there won't be any major cracks on the inside, aside from this obvious one that just about splits the piece in half. I did my best to cut the piece right through that fracture line, and here's the result. We've got super vivid yellow color with patches of white chalcedony toward the center. Sadly, the scarlet plumes didn't travel into the core of the rock, but it'll still make some nice cabochons, I think. This next stone definitely has the most vibrant colors as well as the boldest color contrasts of all the jasp-agate we've found. But like pretty much all the other jasper-agate we found in our area, this one looks riddled with cracks. Before I can do anything to this stone, I have to try to remove the rest of this concrete-like coating on the flat side of it. That'll allow me to see the colors, patterns, and cracks. As expected, there are quite a few fractures in the stone, but look at that color! This rock is hands down the most vibrantly colored agate I've found so far in Las Vegas. The solid yellow areas and the blood orange webbing is insane. I can't do anything with the outer surface on the rough side of the rock, so let's head back to the trim saw and cut it off. It's way faster this way and it eliminates unnecessary wear on the cabbing wheels. Alright, let's set those aside for now and start off on the cab machine with a somewhat easier piece. This small but neatly shaped carnelian was the first nice rock we found in that small lot from Episode 1 of Rockhounding Vegas. It looks really solid with no major cracks as far as I can tell, and you can see it's quite translucent when I hold it up to the light. The first step is to remove this concretion from the outside of the stone so we can see the shape underneath. Luckily, this stuff is quite a bit softer than the agate, and it also tends to peel off in chunks once you remove large bits of it. Look at that beautiful orange glow with the concretion removed. The shape of this stone makes it a bit tricky to figure out which type of cut I'll give it. Let's set it aside for later and pull out another interesting rock. This one shows some really interesting colors and patterns from the outside, so let's start bringing the edges in and remove a bit of the skin and see what's underneath. I definitely didn't expect it to look like a strawberries and cream candy underneath, but that's really fascinating. Let's take it to the trim saw to save us a few minutes of trying to grind away the remaining inclusions. There's still some imperfections on both sides even after trimming them on the saw, so I'll bring those sides in a little bit more on the coarse grinding disc. It's finally looking clean enough on one side to create the dome of the piece. And with that preform done, let's go back to the narrow chunk of carnelian. I think the first thing to do is bring in the jagged, chipped sides so that they follow a smooth line in order to begin creating the final shape. This piece is pretty angular, basically matching the shape of a triangular prism. I'd love to turn it into a three-sided faceted gemstone, but I won't know if that's possible until I finish evening out the sides and flattening the faces. Now with the edges brought in, the general shape is done. The next step will be to create the dome, but I want to get all the other preforms done first. So let's move on to the next, even smaller chunk of carnelian. This stone has a beautiful golden color and good translucency and appears to be completely crack-free. It's really small and has a skin on the back, but I really want to cut it if only as practice for cutting small gems like Australian opal in the future. So the first order of business for this piece is to remove the outer skin on the grinding disc. After that's done, there really isn't much grinding we have to do to reach the final shape of the gem, so we can set that aside and move on to the next piece. This thin slice was the outer skin that I trimmed from the red and yellow jasp-agate earlier. It's got beautiful color, so let's see if we can get anything out of it. First, I need to bring in the thin edges that we can't really do anything with. After that, I can begin smoothing out the outer skin on the grinding disc. Now I'm moving on to the slab of fractured jasp-agate. This piece really lends itself to a heart shape, so I figure I can attempt my first heart-shaped cabochon. Using the edge of the wheel allows me to cut the tight inside corner and round out the edge. Then on the grinding disc, I can remove the excess material, sharp corners, and the concretion on the side to form the initial heart shape. The preform of this piece is now done. Have a look at that beautiful color. Now I can do the same thing on the other slab from the same rock. Let's pull back out the superior jasp-agate that I trimmed earlier. This part with the beautiful bold yellow and a red vein running through it is perfect for its own cabochon. Rather than heading back to the trim saw, I'm gonna do a lazy man slice by using the edge of the wheel to score the agate and then snap it off. I ended up struggling to snap the pieces apart and did it off camera. This piece makes it really easy to tell which shape suits it best, so let's grind away the excess material. Have a look at that! This piece has the most vibrant color of the entire stone, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. But the preform is done, so let's grab the next piece. This one is an orange-colored, moderately translucent chalcedony with white dotted inclusions. It does have a crack or two visible, but I think it still will make an interesting gemstone. Here's the preform of it done. It looks a lot like candy to me. Now I'm going to work a little bit more on the elongated teardrop carnelian. Because of the asymmetrical angles and the flat face, I think I'll form the dome on the backside to preserve as much thickness as I can. Jumping back to the superior jasp-agate now. I'll slice the tapered edge off since we can't really do anything with it anyway. The chunk is now pretty thick for its size, and the stone will likely break later on, which will make any cabochon even more unnecessarily thick for its size. It's also got an uneven thickness, so I'm going to try to cut a slab off to make the ends more parallel. My trim saw skills are lacking, so that unfortunately didn't end up working too well. But I can always even it out on the grinding disc. The first two pieces are from the main stone, and this is the end piece I sliced off. It actually looks like it could make a really nice cab with its yellow and orange colors. Starting with the thinner slice, I'll bring in the edges and sides to form the cab's shape. Honestly, this crack looks pretty major and I may be able to just, Yep, it broke in half. That didn't take much effort at all. But now I can make two cabochons, so I see this as an absolute win. I just need to bring in the new sharp edges and reform the stone's shapes. Have a look at that color. Pulling the thicker piece back out, I see the same exact type of fracture running through it. Let's see if the shop supervisor's pliers can break that chunk off. And that was super easy, barely an inconvenience. Rather than spending 10 minutes grinding the broken edge away, let's just hop back on the trim saw and get rid of it in 30 seconds. After the cleaning and reshaping, here are all the stones I preformed from that single nice jasp-agate rock. And while I'm at it, here are the 2 heart-shaped jasp-agate stones I cut earlier. The next stone up to cut is this beautifully colored carnelian. It's already starting off pretty small and has a lot of fractures and skin on the surface. But I'm hoping I can cut anything at all from this piece because that glowing orange color is magical. The preform is now done and it's ready for the dopstick, but seeing those internal cracks worries me. Next up is this really nicely colored agate that I had already removed the skin from. Unfortunately, while this is the nicest agate I've found yet, it's riddled with fatal cracks. But I applied some stabilizing solution given to me as a sample by Jonathan Treadwell from Rockhounding Nation, so hopefully it'll remain in one piece as I cut it. I can't yet figure out what I want to do with this stone, so let's move on to another one. This piece is half of the yellow and red jasp-agate I sliced open earlier. I'll be calling this the buttered popcorn rock from now on because just look at it. I didn't quite manage to slice it directly on the fracture line earlier, so the first step is to grind it down to that plane. Here is the result of the preform. There are still some visible cracks remaining, but they're really fine and shouldn't compromise the integrity of the gemstone. The next step for our gemstones is to create the domes. I've never made a cabochon in a shape with corners before, so these heart preforms may prove tricky. After getting the domes partially made, it's time to attach the stones to dopsticks. The purpose of this is to make it easier to achieve a more perfect symmetrical shape and better domes on the gemstones. First, I need to heat them up by placing them on the surface of the wax melter. Then I can smush down the wax already on these dopsticks. I've decided that because this agate doesn't have a side that should clearly be the face and it's fractured badly on both sides, I'm just going to make it a double-sided rounded stone instead of a cabochon. That's looking pretty decent for the shaping stage. Let's move on to the next piece. Just by looking at the side profile of this strawberries and cream stone, you can see that one of my biggest weaknesses is getting an even girdle, which is the point where the side ends and the dome begins. But hopefully I can fix it up a bit as I roll the dome. Now that it's dry, it's obvious that this cab I cut from the scrap I sliced from the jasp-agate earlier is pretty cracked. But I think it can hold together and still make a decent piece. Next up will be the buttered popcorn stone. I managed to fix the shape of the gemstone and make it a little bit more symmetrical and put a nice dome on it. But I still struggled to achieve a perfectly even girdle. Next up is the really nice agate that seems to be crack-free and has an awesome color pattern. It reminds me a lot of the planet Jupiter. Now we've got another piece from the bold jasp-agate. This one has a really nice yellow body tone and some good translucency, but unfortunately it also has a few major cracks. I did quite a bit better with a girdle and dome shape on this piece. Next up will be another piece from the same jasp-agate rock. I forgot to record a clip from after I finished this stage for that piece, but I'll show it later on. Next up, we have the fourth gemstone from that same bold jasper-agate. It's a bit smaller than the previous one, but has great color and no noticeable cracks. It'd be much nicer without that inclusion and pitting on the surface, but I love the plumes of bright red. Now for the final gemstone cut from the nicer jasp-agate. The yellow is super vibrant in this piece, and the red swirl going through the middle really reminds me of yin and yang. And with this as a final shape, I'm going to call this my yin and yang jelly bean. The next stone to cut is this really nicely colored, solid looking carnelian that I removed the outer skin from earlier. Look how this gem absolutely glows in the light. This gem is also carnelian, but it's much less translucent and has white polka dot-like inclusions and a major crack running through it. But I still think it'll make a decently nice cabochon. Here's what it looks like while still wet after cutting it to its relatively final shape on the coarse wheels. And we've got another carnelian to refine. This one has a really nice bold orange color. It's a pretty small piece, but I'm hoping I can get at least a small gem out of it because that orange color is amazing. Now that all the cutting on the coarse wheels is done, it's time to start taking out the scratches with increasingly fine wheels. This is our first piece for this process, and sadly the end of it broke off along a major fracture line. So that has to go back to the grinding disc so I can quickly trim it down and get it back to good shape and re-roll the dome. It's quite a bit smaller now, but it still looks pretty good, I think. Well, the rest of the process is just me going over each cabochon with the finer wheels, so I'll skip all of that and cut right to removing the gemstones from the dopsticks. The best trick to take them off is sticking them in the freezer for several minutes. After that, they just snap right off. The hopefully final step is to clean the wax off the bottom of the stones and bring in the bottom edge a little bit to allow for easier jewelry mounting. And here are all the finished gemstones. These two jasp-agate hearts were really difficult. The initial challenge was in creating a mostly symmetrical shape because I didn't use a stencil. Then, rolling a smooth, even dome was exceedingly difficult on the wheels. And once I achieved both of those, I was defeated by the process of achieving a nice pre-polish. The larger and flatter the stone is, the harder it is to remove every little speck of scratches. I took these hearts back to the Cab King numerous times, but eventually I just called it good enough. By this point in the video, I had been coming to the shop 3 days in a row. I severely underestimated the amount of time it would take me to cut all the stones that I brought from that Rockhounding Vegas episode, and I just wanted to be done. My back was in a lot of pain, and I had already spent quite a bit of money using these machines. I also seem to have a bad habit of either applying too much pressure on the coarse wheels or not moving the stone around enough. This leads to the scratched ravines you can see when the light shines on the stone. Making cabochons is a lot harder than it looks when you watch videos made by people like Justin from Black Opal Direct. Anyway, after the jasp-agate hearts, we've got the stones cut from the superior jasp-agate that had less cracks and more vibrant colors and patterns. Here's the one that broke during the smoothing process. There are some dull areas remaining, but it's decent. This larger piece that I made from the scrap cut is pretty dull all around. That's because of the increased difficulty the flatter the dome is. The third piece is one of my favorites from that large rock. The polish and dome are pretty good, but not perfect. The fourth one had some really obvious cracks that would probably make it not suitable for jewelry unless it's first stabilized. But I put in the effort to finish it anyway because practice makes perfect, and I have a long way to go before I can call anything that I cut perfect. And lastly from that rock, we have my favorite gemstone from the entire batch of rocks, my yin and yang jelly bean. Here's the included carnelian that kinda looks like boiling caramel or something. The crack is obvious now because it's dried out. The double-sided agate had to be my worst polishing job of them all. It was covered with divots full of scratches even after I took it back to the Cab King and went through the whole pre-polishing process again. I think not being able to put it on a dopstick made it much harder to get a good result. But I'm not too sad about it because the piece had so many large cracks in it anyway. If it wasn't for the sample of stabilizing solution given to me by Rockhounding Nation, it definitely would have crumbled in the cutting process. So having it cut and in one piece is already a victory. Next up is the Strawberries and Cream Lozenge Rock. It's got an unsightly inclusion and some obvious cracks in the middle, but it's still a pretty neat stone and gave me some excellent practice. I really like this tiny button-shaped carnelian. It's nice and gemmy, and I got a great dome and polish on it. Unfortunately, the really bright orange teardrop-shaped carnelian broke during the pre-polishing process. It also came off the dopstick at the same time, so I ended up just doing my best to cut it while holding it in my hand. Cutting tiny gemstones like this is another thing Black Opal Direct makes look super easy. But as you can probably tell by the shape of it, it wasn't. The buttered popcorn jasp-agate still had a small crack on the edge that was visible, and I never fully fixed the girdle on the piece. But I really like the bold yellow color of this gemstone. Now this carnelian cab reminds me a lot of a long piece of candy corn. It has a nice golden orange body tone, high translucency, and clouds of scarlet color throughout. I also managed to give it a great pre-polish and even a nice dome. Next up is the awesome agate that looks like Jupiter. Its plumes of white and orange really look like a storm-filled atmosphere to me. This piece has no discernible cracks, which is the craziest part to me, and high translucency. I lined up my favorite gemstones from this batch in order. My favorite, as I mentioned earlier, is the Yin and Yang Jelly Bean. In second place is the Jupiter agate gemstone. Third is the candy corn carnelian. Taking fourth place is this crack-free, nicely colored jasp-agate oval. And my fifth favorite is the buttered popcorn jasp-agate. What are your favorites? Let me know in the comments below. That marks the end of this video. I'm still experimenting with what content I should show and what I should cut out, so please feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments section. I've got lots more rock and gem content coming up, including more rock hounding and exploring public land in Las Vegas. Subscribe to stay tuned for that, and drop a like if you enjoyed this video. In any case, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.